Warm greetings, everyone. Welcome back to COP26 in Glasgow and the SDG Pavilion organized by the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. We're here with part 2 of today's conversation on the implementation of the Global Roadmap for Accelerated SDG 7 Action, with a focus today on science and innovation. This global roadmap was announced by the UN Secretary General and comes as a result of the recent UN high-level dialogue on energy convened in September. It includes ambitious milestones to be achieved by 2025 and 2030. Our panelists now are Zitouni Ould-Dada, Deputy Director of FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, and Jacqueline Kimeu, International Coordinator of the Alliance of Civil Society Organizations for Clean Energy Access, also known as the Access Coalition. And joining virtually, we have Thomas Fohgrub, Team Leader of the Coordination Unit for the Global Platform of Action for Sustainable Energy and Displacement Settings. And our moderator is Minoru Takada, Team Leader of the Sustainable Energy Team at UN DESA. Over to you, Minoru.
Thank you very much. So this is, sixth round of the global roadmap discussions today. So I'll show up a little bit, our global roadmap on the screen. But I think many of you might have already heard my presentation. So SDG 7 was established in 2015. That set the goals and targets for energy for the first time in the UN history. So what we needed is a little more sort of detailed plan of actions and get there. So for the member states, they decided to meet to discuss this global roadmap. So that resulted in high-level dialogue energy in September, convened by Secretary General Antonio Guterres. There are two major outcomes from the high-level dialogue energy. Number one, global roadmap for accelerated SDG 7 action, which is what I'm going to explain today. And then secondly, set up energy compacts, which are voluntary actions to address the accelerated actions moving forward toward SDG 7. Next slide, please. So global, the roadmap, the point toward 5 areas of actions, starting with energy access, rapidly transitioning to decarbonized energy systems, and then mobilizing adequate finance and predictable finance to get there. Of course, in doing so, we have to leave no one behind, no country behind. And then finally, very importantly, harnessing innovation, technology, and data. Next slide, please. Global roadmap also suggests 2 sets of milestones. Toward 2025, there are 8 milestones in the global roadmap. Picking up a few, 500 million people additionally need to be accessing electricity. And also at least 1 billion people needs to get clean cooking solutions, because we have 2.6 billion people waiting to get clean cooking solutions by 2030. Then in doing so, we are creating additional 30 million green jobs. So these are sort of significant set of all the numbers that we have to be working towards. Next slide, please. 2030. Obviously, this is when we want to see SDG 7 achieved, which means the universal access to modern energy services, both electricity and clean cooking solutions. That would mean that also tripling investment in renewable energy, energy efficiency. And of course, we would have phased out the coal by the time of 2030 and 2040 globally. And then in so doing, then we'll be creating additional 60 million green jobs. Next slide, please. Roadmap also points toward very important principles. Number one, the most vulnerable countries, communities, and peoples will have to be taken care of very well. So that's a very important point, and I'm sure Thomas would like to say a lot about these issues, and of course, Jacqueline too. Then gender equality and women's empowerment is central to this global roadmap. And of course, all those things need to be part and parcel of just inclusive, equitable energy transitions. And no transitions at the country level will be the same. So we have to be also working towards creating options and realistic pathway to get to net zero, but at the country level, pathway differ case by case. So in a nutshell, I wanted to sort of give this, presentation to capture the global roadmap content. With this one, I want to get started with the conversations. So first question I have is that now that we have global roadmap to achieve SDG 7 by 2030, so what do you recommend to do in terms of next actions? So that's going to be the immediate thing that I'll be asking. Okay, Jacqueline, maybe we start with you.
Thank you very much for inviting me to sit in this panel. I hope my sound is okay. Yeah. Okay. First and foremost, I want to just say that Access Coalition, we are a global coalition of CSOs and also local communities, and we are working together to support delivery of SDG 7 across the globe. And we're really excited that Access Coalition has been in the forefront, has been providing inputs during the high-level dialogue process, providing inputs from CSOs across the African continent for that matter. And just like the other stakeholders in the energy sector, Access Coalition has submitted Energy Compact detailing how we are going to support delivery of universal energy access by 2030. And one of the key issues that we are prioritizing as access is delivery of integrated energy planning approaches across, energy access deficit countries. From the research, from the report, we saw that most of the energy access deficit countries are found in Africa, and that's where we have the largest energy access deficits. So in terms of how do we move forward from here, I know different stakeholders have been able also to have energy compact aligned to integrated energy planning aspects. One of the key things that we can consider doing is mapping out the different energy compacts that have been developed by different stakeholders and submitted, knowing who is doing what, where, and how can we strengthen partnerships for those who are working across same or aligned, agenda. For us working on integrated energy planning approaches, how do we deliver energy, integrating it with the wider energy needs of the people? Most of the times we have been development partners and also other stakeholders have been delivering energy solutions, not meeting the needs of the people. So we need to look at energy delivery in a new phase in terms of ensuring that it meets the needs of the local people. Energy for what? Energy for agriculture, for for economic development. So merging, bringing us together, stakeholders who have aligned compacts to see how we can strengthen and support each other in terms of delivering that, and that is aligned to the principles. We are talking about integrated energy planning approaches. Do we have common principles that can be adopted that different countries and especially the energy access deficit countries can work together or can adopt instead of different countries, doing different things? Yet there might be some principles that they can use to suit their own context. So that would be one of the key immediate steps. Again, that should be matched with the needs-based planning that really takes the needs of the local people into consideration instead of, top-down approaches that have been happening in most of the African countries. We need to have the bottom-up approach where stakeholders, where the local communities are involved in decision-making processes to say, we need energy for this, we need energy for that. Again, in terms of my second point is about enabling environment. For us to achieve the targets that I've seen you presenting here, which are really good, and I want to acknowledge and to congratulate you for the ambitious targets that we have set. I know this is achievable, but one of the key things that we need to work on is enabling environment. Looking at the environment for the energy access deficit countries currently, 17 out of the 35 energy access deficit countries in Africa have insufficient enabling environment. So for us to achieve this, we need to work with these countries, develop the required policies, the required regulations that can push them to deliver universal energy access to energy. Again, we have also issues of unreliability of the grid. Most of the grid on grid in Africa is unreliable, and most of the countries or most of the industries end up relying on diesel power generators. How do we shift this to renewable energy? Financing, supporting adequate financing for industries for different countries so that we have 100% reliability of the national grid. Lastly, as I talked about, is involvement of the local people in decision-making processes. We have seen that communities in the African context are not involved in, making the decision in terms of energy. And this will be very critical moving forward to ensure that they are involved in this and their voice, their voices matter. This is also tied to ensuring that they are not only recipients of information, recipients of technologies, but they must be co-creators of that kind of information and knowledge. And of course, lastly, it's about ensuring that we have a transfer of information, knowledge sharing between the global south and also the global north. And that is something that Access Coalition is really working on to ensure that lessons learned in different contexts are able to be translated to the local level and they're able to be undertaken so that we don't repeat the mistakes. Rather, we take in the good lessons that we are learning. Because we understand that different stakeholders have come up with lessons learned. How do we deliver, SDG 7 by 2030? Different countries at different levels, and I know there are different learnings that can be undertaken, and that is also tied to learnings, support, capacity development, and support for policy decision makers in the African context. So I'll stop there at that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think leadership from the ground up is extremely important in inclusivity that we're trying to chase. I mean, this is very central to take into consideration differentiated conditions that you mentioned. Maybe we'll go to Thomas. So what are the immediate next steps, Thomas?
Thanks, Minur, and thank you for inviting me, and warm greetings, late greetings from Geneva. My name is Thomas. I'm representing the GPA, which stands for the Global Platform for Action for Sustainable Energy in Displacement Settings. So we are a coalition of first movers, all the relevant actors in the humanitarian space, as well as key actors from the development side and from the energy coalition. And so obviously you won't be surprised that I will have a focus on displacement settings. However, let me emphasize 3 points here. First, I think this call from the UN Secretary General is really the moment to step up as joint UN. We have great colleagues in various departments, various organizations. We have DESA, we have UNDP, we have all the regional commissions, we have FAO, WFP, all the relevant actors. We have such a knowledge basis within the United Nations system, plus then also additional partner organizations like GIZ, like Sustainable Energy for All and all the others. So I think we should really come together. We really need to drive this agenda forward. And for me, the first goal, and that's my second point, is to develop country roadmaps. And I think this is very much in line with what you just heard. We need to look at collectively on concrete activities. How could a country roadmap look like? How can we support the countries, independent of whether this is now my immediate mandate or not? Really, we have to go outside our comfort zone and work together as the UN. And we have the structure in place with the UN development sector in general. And I would like to emphasize one point which you already heard. It's what I see often is we sometimes we see these country roadmaps, these big plans, and then we are waiting for years for donors or for the multilateral banking system to provide funding. However, this takes all too long. With that speed, we won't achieve our goals in 2030, which is 9 years to go. And so we should really focus on what's doable with smaller ticket sizes. And we just heard diesel generators. Perfect example. We know in most countries in Africa, diesel generator produced electricity is by far the most expensive way to produce electricity. And this is not something where we need big money. This is something where we need a conducive environment in the countries where the private sector can come in. And I'm very convinced there's really enough money out there that is looking for a sort of haven to park and to work with. And obviously in these country roadmaps, and here's my hat of the humanitarian sector, we need to include displacement settings. Often displaced populations, so refugees, for example, or internally displaced people are not included in national or international energy agendas. Often this is seen as something that the humanitarian folks will work on somehow, but unfortunately that's not the case. They don't have the expertise, they don't have the funding for that. They're not set up in a way to explore and implement long-term energy projects. They're set up to work in a short-term response to serve X amount of people after an emergency, and not to provide long-term cooking solutions, clean cooking solutions, for example. So this is really where we need to bring in the various partners on the ground from government and also regional partners. And obviously on the cooking topic, this is a much longer process. I think here hopefully the future is with electric cooking in the long run, but also in order to achieve electric cooking solutions in the next 10 years, we need to start do it today. And that's why we could link also this work on decarbonizing and diesel-powered infrastructure to this. And my final point is, when it comes to the UN, we really need to walk the talk. If we are serious about our goals, if we are serious about promoting SDG 7, then we need to look at our own backyard. We need to look at our own diesel generator fleet. And we are talking about an estimated 25,000 generators that is run by the wider UN family. We know from our research alone in the humanitarian system, we are talking about 11,400. So it is a massive, massive investment volume. It is a massive opportunity to create viable renewable energy market in these countries in areas where nobody would invest otherwise. So really, I think here the UN need to be on the forefront of the decarbonization topic. We are talking about 130-ish countries where the UN is present. And in most cases, the diesel generators are not the most economical solution. On the contrary. Back to you, Minoru.
Thank you. I think, from broader one to the specific sort of ideas, and then I really liked very much. Thank you so much. And then we can debate a little bit more about in the next set of questions about the role of the UN system. Then when it comes to the specific issues here. Zitouni, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Minoru. Thank you for presenting the roadmap, and thank you to colleague for putting your points and what needs to happen now. There are a number of good points that were made there. I definitely agree with them. And let me pick up on the point you made, Minoru, earlier with regard to the inclusiveness and equitability. And that's, for that, I want to highlight the point of the principle that we operate under and we keep repeating, to leave no one behind, which is absolutely essential. But I think we reach a time now where, at least in this atmosphere of the COP, that stresses the fact that we need to do much more and much faster. And we did the energy access, and you mentioned, two things about, energy access and the clean cooking solutions, for instance. I think to make greater impact, first of all, is to start or to build on the things that we started and proved to be effective, and to do more of them, so that other countries and other communities can benefit from that as well, because it's been proved. The second thing is to reach out really to those who are still left behind. I think that's where we can really make a difference, because climate change, energy poverty, poverty in general, food insecurity, those communities who really need our help. And I think, you know, Thomas said this is a time where we need more coming together between the UN agencies. I think we need to take advantage of this now to speed up where we can make a difference together. Because every agency has something to bring in terms of mandate, in terms of expertise, and in terms of knowledge, and knowledge on the ground as well. So I think we need to make those linkages and reach out to those that are really left behind. So my third point is exactly what I said, is who needs to be involved in this. And we know it goes beyond the UN agencies, of course. And I think it's just time to make that even bigger. And I think that's the key message we're getting from here, that we have to move on into more solutions. And the UN has been proving this for a while, that we have projects and programs in different parts of the world, and it's time to join those dots between the programs, between the initiatives, between the agencies, and reach out to those really who are still forgotten. That will be my point on how to go forward to make a difference. Thank you.
Great. Let's get down to the second point, because I think we started moving in that direction already. What is it that the UN system should do now? Now, obviously, I think this is not the first time that we see something called global roadmap in the UN system, and in the international community. We have seen so many times of this nature. Targets, milestones, indicators, we are all so familiar with those things. The question is that, how do we actually sort of make something happen on the ground? And I think this is where we had a variety of experiences. And let's be honest, not all the experiences has been great. So I think, we as the international community who are working on this topic will have to reflect. Now, at the United Nations, there's a group called UN Energy, which is a network of UN entities working on energy, and everybody here are part of it. And then we're now in the stage of developing next 4-year work plan, UN Energy Plan of Action toward 2025. Obviously, the roadmap will provide anchor to that. But I think, there is a bit in details here, right? What approaches, in which way we move forward on those things. So we benefit a lot from your suggestions. And then, let's get down to this little specificity here. Okay? Jacqueline, I don't know whether, you could start on this topic, and then we go around again, okay? So Jacqueline.
Thank you very much. And I see the role of the UN agencies actually is really needed. The other day we were here in this pavilion talking about, beyond connections, and we were co-hosting this event with UNDP. And they were sharing very good perspectives through the SDG program in Uganda, in Latin America, very good lessons. So some of us in other African countries can really benefit from such learnings. We were getting to hear such, good lessons at first time. So how do the UN agencies transfer such, experiences and lessons learned to other to other countries? I know this involves a lot of, planning, resources, and the rest, but it's a step in the right direction if we had to have, to bring together the experiences that we had in a different, in country or place, then moving this forward to other countries. You talked about sharing of lessons, good lessons. Yes, it's very important to share the good lessons and also to share the bad lessons so that people don't repeat the same mistakes, in terms of, advocating or rather even developing solutions that work for local communities. So the sharing of information should not only be for the good practices, but also to avoid the duplication of failures in other countries. So I see a very critical role for UN agencies in terms of that. Secondly, is about the convenership, the convening power of UN agencies, talking about, how UN agencies in different countries are able to bring together multi-stakeholder partnerships. And multi-stakeholder partnerships is what we need to deliver on, SDG 7 for that matter. So I see a very critical role for the UN agencies to convene different stakeholders, starting from the local communities all the way to the UN level, because they can convene such a kind of multi-stakeholder forums, and for that we can be able to learn from each other, share from each other, and make things work. So for me, those are two key critical areas that UN agencies can play in terms of ensuring that we deliver the roadmap for SDG 7. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas. So we got milestones now, right? A bit more specific than, say, SDG 7 target. So 2025, 2030. And then we have, obviously, emerging energy complex. Can we use those things as a way to sort of organize ourselves a little better and be specific? So that, UN is better prepared to support our member states and our partners to actually grow significant action and responses. And I'm sort of, because you work on the specific areas as well. So I just wonder, what would be the sort of best way for the UN to actually bring forces around the key issue that we need to address? And then, if you have any suggestions on that, that's going to be really great.
I would like to suggest 2 points. First is more on the content perspective. So I mentioned already the UN need to be on the forefront in terms of decarbonization. However, the UN also need to be on the forefront on energy efficiency. Let me emphasize this point here, because it also is often overlooked. Just to give you a tiny example, we were able to grant WFP $30,000 for a project in Djibouti, with the idea to bring energy efficient solutions to their main office in the country. And so they installed a lot of new air conditions, sensors, and all the rest of it, all the latest appliances. And they were they are expecting annual savings of 17,000. So invested 30,000, annual savings of 17,000. These are examples which we need to promote within the UN. These are examples we see in a lot of places, especially again in Africa. And this leads to my second point, and I think this is where I see an important role for UN Energy. UN Energy should become this global hub for best practices, and as we heard, also worst practices in this space. UN Energy is really this convening element within all the relevant UN agencies or agencies within the UN family. And the other point, which could be of enormous relevance for UN Energy, is can UN Energy make the central hub to monitor activities in these countries? If I want to go to a certain place now, I need to ask 10 different organizations, what are you actually doing in country XYZ? Can UN Energy play this facilitating role? Can we, through UN Energy, monitor energy programs or programs in the making in certain countries in order to assess what kind of amount of people are we actually talking about with the existing programs, and in order to avoid duplication on the ground, because this is what we see, a constant problem with data collection and often also, let's be honest, duplication of work, or at least duplication of data assessment, which is unnecessary, inefficient, and we need to change this practice. Back to you, Minoru.
Thank you very much. So I think, Zitouni, connecting the dots. Are we there yet? Do you see, say, energy complex be helpful in terms of connecting dots and then having a, say, let's say, grander coalition that will live up to the challenge we're talking about, which is very big. It's not about small projects, ABC. I mean, of course, they are good, but that's not good enough to join the dots on those. Any thoughts about way forward for the UN system?
Sure, thank you, Minoru. Well, let's start with energy. Energy access touches the life of everyone. and it's needed for economic development as well. And when we see what's happening at global level, there are various things happening where energy gets mentioned as the connector between the various challenges that we're facing today. Climate change, obviously, that's obvious. If you remember, a couple of months ago, we had the UN Food Systems Summit as well, where we also identified the linkages between energy, food, and water, for instance. That's the nexus that is also important in various settings. That's another connection that also needs to be made. And if we look at other settings happening, obviously the high-level energy dialogue that we had also, that looked at the issues of data, technology, and innovation. So the energy sector cuts across everything that we do, and obviously it cuts across the SDGs. So we need to make that connection. I think it's about time really not to look at energy in isolation. SDG 7 is relevant to everything we do, to our lifestyles, to industry, to employment, etc. And that brings me to the point in terms of connections, also two things. One, which is going forward, energy, who is actually active in the energy sector, who actually provides energy and facilitate access to energy technologies, is private companies, private sector. So I think we need to be ready to take more risks than before. It's okay to make a mistake sometime and learn from it and move on. And private sector is about taking risks. And I think we need to match that by aiming high, aiming big, so we can make a big difference, and tailor our approach in engaging with the private sector so we can go at the same speed. Because I think in the UN, we still have our own way of doing things, the procedures that are slow and can be frustrating for private companies sometimes. We have to be honest about that and be innovative and think, well, how can we adapt now? If we want to do things faster, we need to change certain things. We're not going to expect to change everything, but we need to change certain things. I'll just finish by one example. In FAO, we recognized this challenge, and we just developed a new strategy for engaging with the private sector, trying to think, well, how can we improve that? How do we engage? Because we have to recognize that, and we talk about it in the UN family a lot. We need to engage with the private sector. Private sector is so an important actor in allowing, facilitating access to energy, investment in technology, etc. But we need to be more honest about it and say, well, actually, we can't just talk about it. We have to make it happen, facilitate it. So how can we do that? How can we speed it up? So even when we talk about data and technology and innovation within the UN system, we can't just talk about it in our context. It has to fit in with the context of investors as well. And I think that's something that I would finish with. We need to move from our business as usual into something more innovative. It's more risky because the reward will be higher. That's the point. Thank you.
If we don't stand up today, I don't think we can achieve 2025 milestones. So I think this is a very good sort of input, Zitouni, and all the comments. And thank you very much. We'll be developing the UN Energy Plan of Action, and then one of the elements is going to be the stakeholder mobilization. We're calling it currently Energy Compact Action Network. So this is where the issue related to what Zitouni just mentioned about how do we bring real stakeholders who are active, whether it is civil societies or business. I think this is a time that you and ourselves sit down together to reflect. With this, I will stop here today, and this is going to be the last of the series of conversation about global roadmap for accelerated SDG 7 action at COP26. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope that you enjoy the conversation. We'll come back on our progress toward UN Energy Action Plan moving forward. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you.